Since version 2, Mamba has got some additional tools for dealing with EXR files. EXR files are image files, but they can handle high bit depth images, and they can also handle multiple layers of images within a single file. So I have an EXR file here. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to Effects and add the layerRoute tool. The layerRoute tool allows us to pick which of the layers from the EXR file we want to route to the RGBA channels that we then do our processing with. So if I double click on the layerRoute, you can see at the moment the layer set is set to none, which is also why we've got a black screen. Clicking on it reveals the different layers that exist inside this EXR file. So if I pick one, we'll now start to see an image. So the layerRoute tool in its simplest form is just there to pick whichever particular channel of the EXR file we want to look at. If we want to, we can also individually specify where the RGB and A channels come from. So for example, if I took the red from the beauty pass of red and the green from, say, the blue pass of the reflections and the blue from, let's say, the green from the shadows, then you can see we make up our own bespoke routing. One thing to know is that the layer set and then the individual RGB channels are mutually exclusive, meaning either use this or use this. If you use both, then the layer set wins and overrides these. So we can use the layerRoute tool to pick out individual layers and work with them, and sometimes those layers are individual objects from a scene that we can then work on differently and composite and whatever we need to do with them. In this particular case, the different layers actually represent different passes from the renderer, and this is quite a common way of exporting from CGI software because it allows us in the compositing suite to have much more control over the final look of a render without having to go back to do time-consuming CGI re-renders. So as with all good demos, here's one I prepared earlier. So what I've got here is I've still got the same car EXR file, and I've simply duplicated it 3 times and run it through a color corrector. So on the first one, I've set it to pull out the diffuse pass, and then on the second one, the highlights pass, and then on the third one, the reflections pass. And I've routed them all up into an OR node, which basically screens them all together. And because they're now separate, I now have fine control over any aspect. So for example, this is changing the brightness of the reflection pass. So let's just complete this by adding the shadow pass as well. So I'm going to just alt and drag that, so I've got another one, and I'm going to add a layerRoute tool to it. And I'm going to select the shadow pass. So obviously this one is white based, so if I just threw this into the OR, it's going to light everything up, which is not what I want. What I actually want to do is to AND it or multiply it with the result of this, so that anywhere that's white will be left untouched, and anything that's dark will make this resulting comp darker. So to do that, I'm going to use an AND node here, which comes up as multiply, same thing. So straight away we can see we've now got more definition in the shadows. So if I now inserted a color grade into here, and obviously we can imagine the effect of changing the black point and gammas, but in context what that means is I can change precisely how strong the shadows are within the comp. There are actually multiple ways of doing this same thing. I've done it this way to be more visual on the canvas. In fact, this could easily be a comp 3D DVE with these layers set to screen and this layer set to darken, or in fact you can do the whole thing in a color grade. So in this instance it's the same process in that I've added a layerRoute to 4 copies of the same file, just with a different pass set on each. Of course these normally say layerRoute, I just change their name in attributes here just so I can see what they are. And then in this instance the color corrector is being used to put everything together. So the diffuse is a normal pass, and then for example if I go to reflections, what I've done is switch the recover mode to inside and set the recover source to input 3. So input 3 is reflections. What the recover mode does is inside the selection shape for this layer, it grabs this input. Well, in fact, there isn't a selection shape for this layer, so actually the whole screen is grabbed. And if I set the overlay mode to normal, you can see that it's effectively just pulling in this pass into input 3. And if I set the layer mode to screen, so it goes over the top of the previous layers, and then of course I still have my controls as before. So as with many things with Mamba, there are multiple ways of doing something. Just some things are more flexible than others. So that explains how to use the layerRoute to fish out individual layers from an EXR file. In the next tutorial, we'll have a look at some more fun stuff using specific metadata passes that can be exported from CGI software.